Hi guys, today I have a game for you played by Magnus Carlsen against the women world champion Judith Polgar, former women world champion. Um, so this is arguably the greatest chess player versus the greatest female chess player. So Magnus with the white pieces, he starts off with d4. Judith plays knight f6, c4, queen's gambit, g6, indicating now here it could be either the Grunfeld with d5, or she could play bishop g7 and it would be the king's Indian defense, and that's what happens. And e4, d6 all theory, so king's Indian defense. And the Flemish line is what Magnus goes for with f3, in a very positional line. Castles, and then bishop e3, a6, knight e2, and c6. So the idea is to push b5 at some point at e5, rook e8, knight d7, knight f8, and then try to get kingside attack. And Magnus tries to go for an anti-classical line and goes with a4, trying to gain some space in the queen side, trying to prevent some ideas that black might have with b5. Now Judith plays a logical move, plays a5 in order to bring her knight to a6 to b4, and Magnus plays knight g3, which is not typical but very playable move. The idea is to gain some side in the king side since she's not expanding there yet. And here she plays knight a6, natural move, and Magnus develops it bishop to e2. So all natural. And here queen c7 was played. Usually you don't see in a king's Indian attack, queen is usually not on c7, and she's supposed to be placed on the e7 square. And we see how this move, the small inaccuracy, it's not really a bad move, but how this idea of placing the misplaced piece on c7, how it could have been better used if it were placed in e7, since it would be targeting the more crucial squares, and it can be seen in this game how if the queen were on e7 it would have been better positioned. Usually lines can go with here you can play e5, I guess, and after d5, h5, and h4, and now you place the queen on e7, and it's a natural position with for the queen on e7, better because it controls this diagonal too, which is quite important. So back to the game, queen c7, and now castles, e5 and d5 response. Okay, gaining some space in the center, and now h5, trying to kick the knight, so h5. The idea is to go h4, kicking the knight. Magnus just plays queen d2, he does not mind Judith kicking his knight, so she goes for it. She plays h4, Magnus drops his knight to h1 and plans on maneuvering it to probably d3 in the near future. So that's what happens after knight h5. He plays knight f2, trying to maneuver it from this pointless square over here. The knight's not doing much in the corner over there, so trying to bring it back into the game. And here Judith plays f5, typical idea in the King's Indian. After knight h5, try to push h5 to gain more space on the king side. So if this queen were placed here, it would be much better because then it supports the attack more easily. Now it has to make she has to make an additional move to get to the king side. So f5 was played, and Magnus just played knight d3, making leeway for the bishop to drop to f2 if needed. Here Magnus could have played another move, which is bishop g5, attacking the h4 pawn at the same time, trying to put some pressure on the d6 pawn. So after knight c5, for example, you take and play rook d1 and try to increase the pressure there, and it also prevents black from blocking, like trapping the bishop if it were placed over here. So if bishop g5 wasn't played and you took immediately and played rook here, well, here even you could play f4, arguably, but yeah, if you play rook d1 here, then f4 is completely crushing and the piece is lost. So that's the difference of playing the bishop on g5. So 93, making leeway. Magnus just avoids all of this, making leeway for the bishop on f2. And okay, she just goes for it, f4. And here there are two ideas. You can play. There are a couple of ideas. You can play queen e7 and h3, which are quite logical moves, trying to bring its pieces. Queen e7 trying to bring its queen to the king side, where black is clearly pushing for an attack, as we can see, and h3 is trying to blow up the king side position for white. However, Judith opts for another move, knight g3, a very good move. The point being that this knight is can't be really touched at this point. So Magnus plays rook d1, and Judith plays c5. However, now the knight can be touched, and you can take, and Judith makes a mistake, which is c5. c5 is a mistake, and I'll show you why. So c5 actually blocks a certain square. So Magnus takes, and now he just trades and plays queen g5. Phenomenal move and a phenomenal understanding for the position. He trades, he knows when to trade, and now the drawback, now definitely white's pushing for the win here, since he's gonna go pawn up, and position seems quite favorable for him. His piece also, he has more space and easy to maneuver, better outposts and etc. But I'll tell you why c5 is a mistake. So over here he moved rook d1, because if he takes and takes, now in this position you can't actually take on g3 with the bishop, and you would have to move the rook, but now it's different. Now you have this blockade position, and queen b6 is happening, and it's not that easy, and black actually gets some decent chances, probably even g4 g5, or even bishop f6 and bring the rook to h7, some ideas like this, or even just bishop f6 king and bring the rook over it. You can try to the position slightly tilts towards black's favor here. However, yeah, so if he takes here, the difference is there's no c5 move, and he can actually play a check, which is actually completely winning here. I'm sorry, not right now, I mean check, like first take, obviously. And now since there's no c5, if the queen g5 move were to be played again, this would come at a cost, because queen b6 is there, this check. It's devastating, it's a very powerful move, and there's actually no way to properly block it. Probably c5 is the best shot that white has. I'm sorry, you would take with the knight here, not with the pawn. Yeah, knight would be a better, because now you're threatening to take with check, and now queen e3, and well, now you can maneuver your pieces to the king side, where black is having a very good attack, and now this pawn is it's a big thorn in white's position. The king is trapped virtually, and yeah, so this is the major difference. And if let's say king h1 is played, and then we have a very easy, a very simple move, which is just defend up on with the king, and actually this makes leeway for the rook to come and check. So if the queen takes, then just check, and this queen covers the square, and now the white would be forced to give up the queen, and queen h2. Yeah, this is completely lost, and white's losing this position. So back to the game. So that's why this c5 move was a mistake from. So Magnus just moves his rook away. Yeah, she should have, instead of playing c5, she could have played. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Back to the game. 1 second. So instead of playing c5 here, she could have just taken probably the knight, and this now continuing the initial plan of playing h3, they would end up with a position like this, and en passant, and queen, bring the queen to the king side and try to build some initiative on that king side. This would have been a better play for black than to keep the knight and play c5, which blocks this queen's check, which is quite major in this position. And now Magnus sees his advantage and he takes it like a champ, and now we see him, once he gets this advantage, he's quite dominant. So she plays queen f7, logical move, knight b5, Magnus attacking the weak d6 square. Okay, now Judith plays queen f6, Magnus takes on g3, he's a pawn up. Now bishop e3, trying to go for some weak squares such as e3. Magnus, okay, he just plays king f2, stopping the superficial threats. And now Judith plays knight b4, okay, bringing her knight to an outpost. Okay, Magnus just, for timing, he just ignores his knight and moves his rook to h1, attacking the bishop. And here Judith plays king h7, and Magnus decides to here he decides to play queen h4. He had another alternative move, which is probably rook takes h6, and this is also an interesting line with bringing the other rook to check and queen h2, and trying to create mating threats. So this was quite interesting. With queen c7, the d6 pawn becomes weak, the rook comes to h7. This is a difficult position to see in a blitz game, but quite nice position, since this rook is virtually useless. It's tied down to this bishop, and all his pawns are falling, and this could be a pass pawn in the future. So this is interesting line. Exchange sacrifice for initiative. However, Magnus sees an opportunity to trade to the end game, where he would be a pawn up, and he has very nice position pieces. There's a backward d pawn, and he has a very nice outpost over here. So it's a very good position for him in the end game. So he decides to trade queens, and okay, Judith trades, and she plays bishop g5, attacking the rook. Okay, Magnus just plays rook h2, giving the opportunity for the rook to if it ever wants to join h1. And here Judith, in time scramble, decided to thought that she found a tactic, and she played bishop e3, and Magnus, in like a second, he just took the bishop. And okay, though he loses the rook for the knight actually can't escape that easily, because Magnus just plays king d2, and after she takes, now king c3 is a very nice move. It covers the only square that the knight had, the only two squares that knight had to escape. Now the knight is trapped, and Magnus' next move is gonna pick up the knight with rook h1 and rook takes a1, and this knight is trapped. And 2 pieces for a rook is insufficient. Already he's down a pawn, so it's looking even better for Magnus Carlsen now after this bishop e3 move. Probably a better move would have been to play something like yeah, to probably go and defend. Maybe might have been better with bishop e7 or rook d1 or rook d8 or something. Just defend the d6 square, which is currently the pawn is hanging over there. But okay, so this happens, and she plays rook h6, a6, defending the d6 square. Okay, now Magnus just goes for the knight. Judith plays bishop d7, finally activating the bishop, but it's just too late, and Magnus just takes the knight. Judith takes on b5, and Magnus takes with the c pawn. Taking with the a or c pawn doesn't make much of a difference, but this c pawn has some positional value to it. His plan is to get the knight on c4 and make, like, after the knight lands on c4, the game is just completely over. That knight just attacks too many weak points, such as these squares, and supports moves like b6. So getting the bishop on b5 on top of all of that would just make Magnus' position a dream position and too easy to win. So here Judith just goes back, and Magnus prepares this idea of getting the knight to c4, b3, making leeway for the knight to go to b2 and later jump to c4. Okay, so Judith plays rook d8, and Magnus just pushes b6 here, challenging black to come after that pawn, since it looks like it can't be touched over there. Okay, and Judith plays rook h1, rook h2, trying to make some threats of her own, but Magnus just has an easy defensive response, rook g1, defending the g2 pawn. And now Judith goes after this pawn, and Magnus willingly allows it and just plays rook knight b2, continuing with this plan of getting the knight to c4. And now she takes the pawn, and Magnus plays a very good move, which is bishop b5, caging this rook. Now the rook has nowhere to go, and he's gonna be an exchange down, or she's gonna be an exchange down after a move like knight c4, and the next next move, for example, if rook h8 were played on knight c4, and the game's technically over. So she would probably take, and yeah, this is the d6 pawn is hanging, the a6 pawn, the a5 pawn is hanging. Too many pawns are hanging, and black is a piece up. So white is a piece up. So this is game over. And after bishop b5, she resigned the game. So please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope to see you next time.